If you're a business owner and would like more information on sponsoring Geek Therapy Radio, just email geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Or call 713-212-8422. That's 713-212-8422. And with that, meeting adjourned. Let's get our geek on.
High tech, low tech, or no tech. Through our hobbies and our passions, the geek comes out in us all.
The world's of geekdom.
I am a geek and I'm proud of it.
Geeks.
Geeks unite.
Well, let's get those nerds! Nerds! No!
Did you just call me a nerd?
Not all geeks are nerds.
Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
This week's episode of Geek Therapy Radio is truly amazing. Here in a moment, I talk to James Espey, Vice President of DeLorean Motor Company, and we talk about the new, more powerful DeLorean coming out in 2019. Then we talk about, of course, the Falcon Heavy launch that SpaceX just did a couple days ago. And we also talk about the new bullet train proposed in Texas between Houston and Dallas. Then in the final segment, a tribute to Black History Month with a very special shout out to an influential African-American scientist. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I have the Vice President of DeLorean Motor Company here, James Espey. Is that all correct so far, James?
It sounds like you know me.
Well, I feel like I kind of have, because I've been bringing my DeLorean there for, well, since July of 2000 is when I got mine. That's back when Steven had the shop downtown, I believe. Is that right?
It's on the other side of Houston, down at 59 in the Beltway on the southwest side, yeah.
Right. And the current DeLorean Motor Company is there in Humble, just off Eddy Road. I don't think people, Houstonians, realize that the base of operations for the current DeLorean Motor Company is right here in Houston.
It's surprising. You know, we've been in Houston since '88, either in the other location in Stafford or up here by the airport, and there's still people, who don't know we're here after being here more than coming up on 30 years.
Exactly. So I'm going to jump right into it, what listeners want to know, and we want to sink our teeth into it a little bit. And whatever you can tell me, I don't want you to divulge any sensitive company information. I know you wouldn't, but I want to talk about the new, quote-unquote, DeLorean, and I guess I will start out with, when are you hoping to start selling them, and what is new about it?
Well, there was a change in the law at the end of 2015 that allows for low-volume manufacturing of automobiles here in the States, something that hasn't been really doable here in the States for probably 35 years or so, since the days of Excalibur and Avanti and some of those other cars. Mm-hmm. But the law says that the vehicle must resemble a car made at least 25 years ago, so we can put a check next to that one, because our car will resemble the original DeLorean, which everybody knows and loves, so why mess with the success?
Yeah.
And but it has to have a modern, current model year emission certified engine. And without going into painful detail, that basically means we have to get an engine that's being used in the States by some other manufacturer, mm-hmm. and then have it certified for use in our car.
Right.
We have a deal with an engine supplier. We are not announcing yet. I believe we're talking about doing the announcement. If we don't do it at the New York Auto Show in April, it'll probably come a little later in the summer at some of the other worldwide shows.
Is there any rough ballpark of specs as to output of that engine?
It will be a V6 engine with approximately 350 to 370 horsepower.
My car that I drive right now, my daily driver, I still have the DeLorean. It's a 2010 Audi S5, and it's got 354 horsepower. It's a naturally aspirated V8. That car weighs, 5,000 pounds. So a car with the same horsepower, an engine with the same horsepower, and a car that literally weighs almost half that. What's the DeLorean? 2,700 pounds?
Yeah, 2,900 pounds is pretty much where we're putting it now.
Okay, so knock a ton off the vehicle weight with the same amount of horsepower. What kind of acceleration are you looking to get out of this?
Well, it's going to be enough to get stupid real fast.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got with a rear engine car with about 62% of the weight in the rear, you know, it'll have a tendency to get tail happy. So it's going to be a driver's car for sure.
I'm sorry, which begs the question. My next question is, what are you doing to the suspension and to the transmission to be able to handle all the power, or the chassis itself?
We've got a technology partner in the United Kingdom. It's a bunch of ex-Lotus guys who are doing the redevelopment work on the chassis and suspension. We're working with a company in the United Kingdom to strengthen the existing manual transmissions to take that kind of power. We're trying to all the parts that we're going to have to make to fill the holes in the inventory so we can build cars, and a lot of the improvements, we're doing everything we can where possible to try to make them so that they can be retrofitted or applicable to the original 9,000 some DeLoreans that were built. So it's going to increase parts availability for people who have these cars.
Yeah.
And it's going to broaden the options that they have available to improve the performance and handling. Obviously, with that much horsepower, we're definitely going with bigger brakes.
Yes.
And with bigger brakes, you're going to need bigger wheels because, as you know, the DeLorean has 14-inch wheels in the front and 15-inch wheels in the back, and that was to help with the handling and the unique weight distribution. We're going to go with 17s in the front and 18s in the rear. And of course, because it's that, and it's virtually impossible to get performance tires in 14 and 15-inch sizes anymore. So that's another big reason for the change.
Right.
And so if an existing DeLorean owner, you know, wants to modernize the look or improve the brakes, they'll be able to buy the brake system, they'll be able to buy the wheels, and then they'll be able to retrofit those to their existing DeLorean. And that's one of those changes. You know, it's a bolt-on conversion. So anybody who's qualms about messing with an original DeLorean, I always say, you know, if it can be easily returned back to stock, you know, then don't worry about it. Just save your old parts. Yeah.
So this leads to my next question. Logical question is, in addition to all the new parts they're putting on it, I assume there's going to be modern electronics, you know, navigation and backup camera and all that kind of rewire the thing basically, update it a bit. Is that's happening, right?
That is. You know, not many people want an AM/FM cassette in their car anymore. Those cassettes are coming back.
Right. Vinyls too.
Yeah. Well, I think vinyl's been back long enough that it's starting to get passé again. But we've decided, you know, the most people, you know, you spend most of your time inside the car, of course. You know, you walk up to it, you look at it, you get in, and then you don't want to be in a car that's long-term, that's got the fit and finish that the original now, you know, 35 years on, you know, completely different set of manufacturing standards, engineering techniques and things like that mean that now we can do we can take advantage of the last 35 years of advances in manufacturing technology, and of course technology in and of itself as far as Bluetooth audio and cell phone integration, cell phone mirroring, things like that.
That begs the next question. For owners like myself who already have an existing DeLorean, is this going to open up the option for, let's say, engine swaps?
It could. It's the biggest problem is there are significant changes to the chassis to handle the torque, to handle the horsepower, slightly different mounting position of the engine. So there's going to be significant changes, and you know, anything can be done for a price. It's just whether or not that price is going to be something that someone is willing to spend.
Yeah,
really.
I was talking with my mom actually at breakfast this morning, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna look more into the new DeLorean. It's getting a new engine, and I was wondering, I wonder if that's going to open up engine swaps. Remember, I'm talking to my mom, who's like 70 years old, and she's like, how much would that cost? And I was just speculating. I'm just like, probably at least $20,000, because it's not just, like you said, it's not just the bolt in the motor in there. There's a whole lot that's got to go into it. And that $20,000 speculation, that's purely, like I said, that's just speculation. I have no idea. And nobody should even think about right now what it would possibly cost, because we're not there yet. But you mentioned the engine placement. One of the things in my years of ownership, I thought that I wouldn't have minded is if John DeLorean had done away with the parcel shelf behind the seats and just moved the engine to the middle. I thought that would have helped it a lot. Is there anything like that going on with the new DMC?
Absolutely not. It's still going to be a rear-engine vehicle, not a mid-engine vehicle.
Right.
And that's mostly because so much of the tooling that we have to make the fiberglass underbodies to which the stainless panels are bolted is set up for that rear-engine configuration. When I say shift the engine, we're going to shift it, a couple of inches closer to the front to kind of give us a little better weight distribution, but also to make it fit better. And then, of course, as you were talking about the swap, it's going to be more than just the engine. We talked about the changes to the chassis, and then at minimum, your existing manual transmission would need some beefing up internally, which of course we could do that as well. But I would hesitant to put a number on anything, but I would say you're probably not real far off. And for some people, they're going to have to make a decision because those changes, I won't say they're irreversible, but they're serious changes. And at some point in the future, as we're already seeing the values increase on the existing DeLoreans that are out there from 81 to 83,
right,
an original DeLorean is going to have far greater value than a modified DeLorean. Now, how that will work with the cars that we're going to be putting together next year, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd have gotten out of the stock market earlier.
Right. To kind of wrap it up, when can we possibly expect to be able to buy a new DeLorean, and for how much?
We're closing a major round of funding here in the next couple of weeks, and that's really going to fast track this whole program. So we're planning for first day of production to become January 21st of 2019. We expect to begin taking deposits with orders within sometime this summer, probably July, August timeframe, once we get the final spec and have all the announcements ready so people will know exactly what they're getting in.
Do you want to give a ball? Okay, go on.
It's going to be knocking on the door of 100,000 for sure.
Okay. Well, cool. Well,
but production will be limited. First year, 22 cars. Year 2, 50, and ramping up by the end of year 3 to hopefully be doing about 2 a week.
Awesome. James, thank you so much for your time. I hope to have you on the show again, especially after any new developments with the DMC. Get the word out there. Get more deposits down. Anybody wanting to drop a little deposit on a new DeLorean? I will suspect. What do I want? A house for me or a DeLorean? We'll make that decision in the future.
But if anybody's got anything that they want to know about them, they can go to the website newdelorean.com, NEWDELOREAN.com, and that's where all the information that's currently publicly available is. And I appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk anytime you want to.
Absolutely. Thank you, James Espey, for your time.
You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, and geeks are sexy.
Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio, and I really hope you enjoyed that interview with James Espey, Vice President of DeLorean Motor Company, giving us all the juicy details on the new 2019 DeLorean. I hope at least that I get to test drive that beast. And I have a feeling that it's a pretty good possibility that I will. Because you know what? I'll just pull up with my current DeLorean and I'll leave the keys with them as collateral. Hey, if I break your thing, you can have my old one. But no, I'm super looking forward to that. And I'm still nerding out over that interview. This segment, I've got to get into it. I guarantee you a lot of people are tuning into Geek Therapy Radio this week wondering about my thoughts on the awesomely intimidating, awe-inspiring, tear-inducing launch of SpaceX's Falcon Heavy. That was such an incredible launch. And I was watching it and I was just absolutely blown away, like everyone else watching it. And kind of fun fact, I tuned in 60 seconds before the actual launch. Like I tuned into the SpaceX's YouTube live feed. I was like, I wonder if they're launching yet. Because they set it back a couple hours or so due to high wind shear. You have to launch a rocket under perfect optimal conditions. So if the wind's blowing, as it was there in Cape Canaveral, I believe it was Cape Canaveral in Florida. It was Florida nevertheless. It needed to be just perfect. So they set it back at least an hour and a half, and I tuned in like 45 seconds and 1 minute before launch, T-minus 60 seconds. It was perfect timing. So I, along with the rest of the country and the world, watching this thing lift off, just awe-inspired. This thing was a skyscraper going up into space. It was amazing. But I totally forgot about something, and I posted on Facebook, those of you who follow me on Facebook, how it brought kind of tears to my eyes. I was just so blown away by it. What brought tears to my eyes, what made my eyes well up out of just like joy, out of just pure nerdy, giddy joy, and I can only imagine what Elon Musk was feeling. But what jerked the tears were watching the two reusable rockets come back down and land perfectly back on the two landing pads. That was amazing. I totally forgot that those boosters were reusable. So, and to watch them both land perfectly in sync with each other, like it was a ballet. It was just the most beautiful scientific ballet that I'd ever seen accomplished by mankind, to me. So, and I was shocked by that. I forgot about that. So when I saw those two things coming back down, I was like, what? I knew that SpaceX had been working on the technology and have got it workable, but I forgot that it was part of the Falcon Heavy launch. I totally forgot. I was just assuming those things were going to fall into the ocean and they'd be recovered. Those two mofos came daintily back to Earth perfectly. That was freaking amazing. Now, if you'll indulge me for a little bit, I am going to get juicy here with these stats, because I know you're tuning in and you're wanting to know, Johnny, my mental curator, please give me the juice. Give me your juice and tell me all these nitty-gritty, joyous morsels of facts about the Falcon Heavy. And I will do so. And these are facts that I got straight from SpaceX. So indulge me. I'm going to go through them one by one. The Falcon Heavy is the most powerful operational rocket in mankind's arsenal by a factor of 2. That means the Falcon Heavy is twice as powerful as the current next competitor, which is the Delta IV rocket. Delta IV Heavy. Twice as powerful. Usually when you build rockets, it's incrementally more. But here's the thing with the with interplanetary space travel, if you're getting objects, or you're getting payload into low Earth orbit, getting things to the moon or to Mars is an exponential increase. You can't just add a few hundred extra pounds of rocket fuel and be able to get to the moon versus what it would take to get to low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is. So to get things to the moon, you need an exponentially higher thrust in fuel and capacity. So that's what the Falcon Heavy provides. It's twice as powerful as the next current competitor, the Delta IV Heavy. And what is that payload? What can it lift off into space? Well, the Falcon Heavy can lift 64 metric tons into orbit. That's 141,000 pounds. That's a mass greater than a fully loaded 737 jetliner. That's not just fully loaded with people. That's fully loaded with fuel, fully loaded with cargo, fully loaded with, like I said, people. It's just a fully loaded 737 jetliner. Not a 747, not an intercontinental jetliner, but a 737 jetliner. The kind of airplane you'd take from Houston to Los Angeles or Houston to New York. It's what you fly on mostly. Anyways, it can lift twice the payload of the closest vehicle, the Delta IV Heavy that I had mentioned. But it does that. It lifts twice the payload at 1/3 the cost. That's the biggest thing about all this, is that it makes interplanetary and lifting payloads that heavy much, much, much cheaper. It's a much more viable option now when you can toss 3 times the amount of payload into space at the same it would cost, using a Delta IV rocket. That's huge. That's huge. That's progress. That's amazing. Almost largely boiling down to the fact that you can reuse the first stage boosters, that they can land so daintily on their landing pads. The Falcon Heavy creates 5 million pounds of thrust, equaling 18 747 intercontinental jetliners at full thrust. 5 million pounds of thrust, that's 18 747s at full thrust. So picture 18 huge honking 747s on the runway at full thrust. That's what the Falcon Heavy produces. I do not want to be under it. The only thing that could rival that amount of thrust is me after Chipotle. Only the Saturn V that took mankind to the moon delivered more payload into orbit. And that was back in 1973. Only the Saturn V that took mankind to the moon could carry more. The Falcon Heavy was designed from inception to carry humans into space and flying humans to the moon or Mars. So from the get-go, Elon Musk said, we need a vehicle that can take us humans to moon and Mars. That's incredible. This was a fantastic week for geeks and a fantastic week for all of mankind. We just got one step closer. It was a giant leap for mankind to get us closer to Mars. It's just a really good week. And even thinking about it makes my hair stand up. Just amazing how far we've come in our space travel. Oh yeah, by the way, what was the payload of the Falcon Heavy? It was Elon Musk's own personal Tesla Roadster, with Starman in the driver's seat, on his way to Mars. So, with that, we'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. That was just amazing. The Falcon Heavy is in space now, getting us closer to Mars. Stick with me, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up after this.
You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, and geeks are sexy.
Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am still your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. And now we are going to talk about the other big news, slightly closer to home. Even though SpaceX does have an office based here in Houston, near NASA, and why wouldn't it? It works with NASA on a lot of things. But closer to home, what's been in the news has been the Dallas to Houston bullet train. I think I have made glancing references to a proposed bullet train in Texas here on my show, but now we are even closer to reality. And that is to say, we've been close to reality on a bullet train in Texas for a while. It's been, the idea of it is, to my knowledge, to my recollection, has been tossed around for at least 20 years. We've been hearing, oh, we're going to get a bullet train here in Texas, and it would make complete sense topographically, at least topographically. Texas is very expansive and very flat. To have a bullet train between Houston, San Antonio, or Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas, the triangle, the trifecta, the 4-city triangle. It makes a lot of sense. And you could even go out to Amarillo from there, El Paso, just connect this big, large, mostly flat state by a bullet train. It seems to make a lot of sense. Well, we're a little bit closer now, a little bit closer. And so now let's get into some specifics about Texas Central's plans to build a bullet train here in Texas. First of all, the Dallas station is going to be built, or is planned to be built, on 60 acres off of Texas 30 in the Roans Prairie area, just west of Texas 90. Hold on a second. I need to look up where the Houston station's going to be. Sorry about that. Slipped my mind for just a second, but the station in Houston is going to be at the 290 and I-10 interchange. Right now, that's still under a lot of construction. So I really think by the time they break ground on this, which I believe is 2019 or 2020, coming up here in the next couple years, they should have the construction. You know what? I stopped myself mid-sentence there because what I was saying was ridiculous. I was about to say, they'll be done by construction by then. Anyone who's lived in Houston for the past any time knows that the road work doesn't end. Somehow, these massive freeways get built, this massive infrastructure is continually built, and the construction just never, ever, ever stops. So the logistics of building a high-speed rail station in that part of Houston makes kind of sense because 290 is the way a lot of people get to Austin, even though Austin is not directly served by the bullet train, so I don't exactly know why I said that. And I-10 doesn't go to Dallas either. My mind just gets on these trains, and, luckily, I'm sorry, I'm speaking about high-speed bullet trains, but my brain derails mid-thought. Anyways, the station for the Houston high-speed bullet train will be at 290 and I-10 in that area, which currently is still under quite a bit of construction. Any freaking way, there's going to be another station in Grimes County, and this is going to be the only stop between Dallas and Houston. So it's not just going to be a straight nonstop Houston, Dallas, Dallas, Houston. There's one stop in Grimes County, and we'll get back to that in a moment. What we really want to know, what I really want to know as a geek, as a nerd, and what you're all thinking a few minutes into this segment, you're thinking, how fast does it go? Number one. And how long is it going to take to get between Houston and Dallas on the bullet train? Well, my geeks, my friends, I have the answer for you. Not going to do a stupid drum roll. Not going to drag this out even more, which is what I'm doing currently. The train will go up to 205 miles per hour. That's a pretty good clip. If you tried to do that in, let's say, a Lamborghini or something, you'd be out of fuel in, 20 minutes? If you could travel down I-45 at a consistent, non-stop 205 miles an hour, you'd be out of fuel in about 20 minutes. But not so on a bullet train. Anyways, it's going to take about 90 minutes to get between Houston and Dallas, traveling at up to 205 miles per hour. You ever get those hiccup burps? I call them hiccups. That's what I got right now. So 205 miles an hour, 90 minutes between Houston and Dallas. A Dallas Central press release says that the stations will have efficient roadway access and connection options for passengers coming to and from the facility, unquote. I should hope so. And I wonder how that's going to plan out. Like I said, the logistics of the Houston station, especially since I'm from Houston, I can picture the area. Efficient travel to and from the station if it's going to be at 290 and I-10. I'm sure they will figure that out, hopefully, to some degree. I could just be the wishful thinking in me, even though it's so far away from downtown, is to have the light rail go out there. The light rail was already supposed to come to the Galleria, and maybe one day it will. But yeah, if you have a light rail going out there to the train station, I know, of course, they're going to have buses and shuttles and things like that, but light rail will be super convenient. Non-stop light rail from downtown and or the Galleria to the bullet train station that's supposed to be built at I-10 and 290. That would be efficient in getting travelers to and from. You know, I live right now very close to the light rail station, less than a mile. I could walk to the light rail and then theoretically be on the light rail and on the bullet train in less than an hour. It's conceivably. And even with that travel time, like 90 minutes plus getting to the train station, actually that does beg the question. Versus hopping in your car, does all the rigmarole of getting to the bullet train station really save you that much time? And if it's a time thing, why not hop on an airplane that can get you to Dallas in like 30 minutes? I don't know what it takes. We'll get to that, the economic part of this, later. Because the more you talk about it, the more I can relate to the opposition. I really love the bullet train, and I want it to exist just for a purely fun reason. I will come out and say it. I have no economic interest in it. But just, it would be fun to get on a bullet train from Dallas to Houston. I have a very baseline admiration for this idea because I think it would be fun to sit on a train and look out the window. And those of you who haven't traveled by train yet, it is the way to go. Traveling by train is just a godsend compared to an airplane. So that's the argument for traveling by train is, you know what, it might take a little longer than going by airplane, but I'm telling you, if you have the choice to travel bullet train or airplane, train is the way to go. So much more comfortable, so much more legroom. You can go to the dining car, you can have a drink, you can have a sandwich. It is just the way to go, even if it takes a little longer. A plane trip is so much worse. Actually, that's not a good way to put it. A train ride is so much better than riding on an airplane. It's so smooth. Some people get motion sickness. They have to sit on a seat facing the direction the train is traveling. I never really got that. I have noticed going on high-speed trains in Europe, a phenomenon that happens to me and probably lots of others is you can get a headache and an earache because the pressure, when you're going that fast, it's like the cabin pressure increases or decreases. It's different from the outside. So just like an airplane going up in a higher altitude and the pressure equalizing, like your ears can hurt. My ears hurt going on a bullet train, traveling 186 miles an hour through France or whatever. Like I have to take an Advil and put in earplugs or earphones that seal my ear completely because it hurts. So I'm sure that the Texas bullet train's going to be susceptible to that. But even still, like when I say my ears hurt, it's nothing compared to the way your ears can hurt on an airliner. That can be downright miserable sometimes. You ever sat there in an airplane seat, moving your jaw around, doing all these, chewing gum, trying to get that incessant, piercing pain out of that one ear that just won't pop? Oh, and then it does pop and it feels like it's tearing flesh inside of your brain. I got sidetracked. 205 miles an hour, 90 minutes between Houston and Dallas, with one stop in between in Grimes County. Officials say that this will spur further economic development, of course, creating jobs and generating tax revenue for surrounding communities. Assuming, this is my editorial, assuming it's profitable. This will create 10,000 jobs, including 1,000 full-time jobs once operations start. Okay, that's all great on paper. Everything is great on paper. But here's the opposition saying, the entire venture, this is true, opposition says the entire venture has not provided any evidence yet of its profitability, and that could leave you and me, the taxpayer, on the hook for it. However many billion it's going to cost us. Not to mention what the rail could do to property values along the route. Now, here's the flip side to that. What's it going to do for property values in Grimes County? So, now people don't necessarily have to live in Dallas and Houston. They don't have to live downtown. They can live in between, which could ease some stress and build the communities in Grimes County. That's great for Grimes County. That's not super great for Harris County, and that's not great for whatever county Dallas is in. I'm not from Dallas. Who cares? Go Astros. Go Texans. Whatever county Dallas is in, it's probably not going to bode well for that. It's probably not going to bode that great for property value in Harris County. Or it might go up. We don't know. This is all speculation. They just haven't proved that it's profitable yet. But we'll get there. I am all for the bullet train, like I said, just for basic reasons that it's going to be fun. It seems like it'll be a lot of fun to me. That's it for this segment of Geek Therapy Radio. We'll be right back with more GTR in just a minute. Stick around, go like all the social media stuff while you're waiting.
You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, and geeks are sexy.
Welcome back to the final segment of Geek Therapy Radio. I hope you've enjoyed your listening experience so far this week, because I sure have enjoyed my creating experience this week. Once again, what a monumental week for mankind. What a monumental week for Geek Therapy Radio. Did you hear the new intro that I have? Oh, it's amazing. Have you heard that new sexy voice out of each segment or into each segment? I wonder who that is. What a great show. We have turned a new corner here on Geek Therapy Radio, and I want to thank all of my geeks for joining me on this journey. As you may have realized from listening to past shows, segment 4 is where we kind of hit on rapid fire, a bunch of topics happening around science and geekdom that I picked up the past week. And I'm just going to hit these all real quick because I want to devote the bulk of this segment, because it is Black History Month, I want to devote it to a black scientist who has done wonders, not only for science, but for minorities everywhere. So, let's rattle off a few things first before we get to the important stuff. Apparently Neanderthals used fire to make tools. They found a burnt piece of wood. What do you call it? Archaeologists found a burnt piece of wood that apparently was struck with an instrument. The wood was put in fire and then struck with another instrument, and that apparently is tool making. So apparently Neanderthals used fire to make tools. Interesting. I'm not an archaeologist, but that is interesting. It's always interesting when you find out things that you had previous notions about, or previous thoughts about, or knew to be true previously, and then all of a sudden you don't. All of a sudden science says, yo, you've unlocked enough mysteries to see that what you previously thought was incorrect. And that is science, because facts do not lie. Facts are not up for speculation. It's just fact. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 is not up for debate. 1 + 1 just straight up equals 2. That shouldn't challenge, to get a little philosophical here, those of us who believe in a creator or a deity, whoever we worship. Science should not challenge your belief system. Science should just strengthen your faith. I, for one, think it's beautiful that both can coexist. When I see scientific discoveries, I don't immediately say, oh, there is no God. That's not me personally. I say, wow, what beautiful, like the art, what is going on in the mind of the architect? That's getting pretty spiritual right now. I'm just saying that it's okay to believe in a deity. That doesn't mean you have to disclaim science. Just because you believe in a deity doesn't mean you shouldn't take your kids to the doctor. Just because you believe in a deity doesn't mean that you have to believe the earth is It's okay for science and faith to coexist. There's nothing in either doctrine that says they can't. At best, you can be agnostic. So, that's all I wanted to say on that. Don't let science challenge your faith. And don't let your faith challenge your science. Just have both. Equally, living together, harmoniously. Don't look to the skies and to the heavens and say, oh, that's all just a hologram because the Bible apparently says that doesn't exist, which it doesn't. The Bible routinely refers to the earth as a sphere, by the way. Anyways, off that head trip, Americans are staying home, streaming more video, and using less energy because of it. So apparently you can tell your boss that you're going to work from home because it's good for the environment. Okay, I guess what they're referring to is that you don't burn gas on the way to and from work. And even if you take the bus, you're still consuming a little bit of fossil fuels. And even if you take your electric car to work, you're still consuming a little bit of fossil fuels because what is powering your vehicle? Also, what is that electric vehicle made of? It's made of plastic and rubber and lithium, things that are mined and taken from the earth in horrible ways. Do not get me started on lithium production, the lithium that goes into electric car batteries. How caustic and tragic that is to the environment. I've touched on this in Geek Therapy Radio. One thing that keeps our technology kind of in the current state of the art is that batteries have yet to progress. I'm not just talking about batteries have yet to progress in their capacity, but batteries have yet to progress in their ability to be produced ethically, ability to be produced greenly. Because right now, lithium production, lithium mining is horrible for the environment. And when you see Teslas driving around that says LOL gas, LOL no gas or whatever, fool, the amount of CO2 and carbon emissions that went into building that car would flip your greeny weeny mind on its butt. Making electric vehicles currently is horrific to the environment compared to making a traditional car. But that's progress. Right now, we have to use what's available in the earth and available processes on the path towards greener production, greener energy. It's just where we're in this transition period right now. This is the century where we're in this transition, and it's okay. Electric cars aren't bad. I want an electric car. When my current daily driver, gives up the ghost, I want a Chevy Volt or a Tesla Model 3. I love electric cars. I spent too much time on that. One more quick important thing before we get to Black History Month scientist for this episode of Geek Therapy Radio. The first quick thing is 157 new emojis for 2018. There you go. All you basic boys and girls, including me, because I use emojis all the time, and I use them inappropriately even to my own boss. Sis. People in authority over me, I probably leave them scratching their heads and worrying about me a little bit. Because I'll reply to my boss, "Sure, boss," with a heart. It's a man, so it's okay. Actually, Sarah is my girlfriend, but at church, she's my boss. So maybe, I don't know, it's a gray area. I try to keep it professional when we're in the same building together when she is technically my boss. I don't do lovey-dovey things to her so much. But behind closed doors, outside. Anyways, okay, no more dilly-dallying. I hate to say I'm dilly-dallying because this is very important. I was looking forward to this all week. It is Black History Month right now. It's February. So I wanted to pay tribute to a black scientist who has paved the way not only for science but for minorities. And I thought, what better way to do that than to pick not only a black scientist, but a female black scientist. And her name is Mary Jackson. She was a mathematician and scientist, and she was one of a small group of African American women who were aeronautical engineers at NASA. Before it was NASA, it was called NACA. I forget what it stood for, but it was NACA. Then it became the National Aeronautics Space Administration. NASA. They were often called human computers due to their mathematical genius. So this group of African American women were called human computers because they were geniuses and they could put most predominant white men in the ground with their brains. That's funny. I'm not making any political commentary right there. Just be adults. Just listen to what I'm saying and just process it however you will. Don't be an idiot about it. It's just a joke. But it's a fact. These particular black women could outmath anybody. Just like my super religious uncle can outmath most scientists. Most atheists couldn't hold a candle to my super religious fundamental uncle's knowledge of math. But back to Mary Jackson. She became NASA's first black female engineer and served a vital role in development of the freaking space program. That's amazing. She helped other minorities and women advance in their careers as a true pioneer. She died in 2005 at the young age of 83 years old, and her monumental achievements earned her fame on the big screen in the 2016 film Hidden Figures, which I haven't seen yet. I need to go see that movie because it looks awesome. She earned dual bachelor's degrees from Hampton Institute for Mathematics and Physical Science. So, Mary Jackson, this is our geeks salute to you for doing all that you've done, not only for science, but for the advancement of minorities in this most appropriate Black History Month. Thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. You have been awesome. You have been very quiet. I didn't hear a peep out of you this show. Where are you at? Email me at geektherapy@iheartmedia.com, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com, or on Instagram, all that good stuff, which a certain lady's going to tell you about in just a second. But thank you, geeks, for staying with me. Please be good to each other. Please love yourself. How can you love another person if you don't know how to love yourself? So please, take joy in your hobbies, take joy in your passions, and be good to each other. And I'll see you next week, my beautiful, beautiful, intelligent geeks. I'm out.
Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.